everybody, welcome back to Millard's Minis of Medicine.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Erica. And today we actually have a viewer question. Woo!
Yes.
So this question comes from John. Hi, John. And it's something we've been talking about, making a video about, because it's a question that we get asked very often. And so we're just gonna dive right in. So the question was, how do we do all of this?
What's all of this?
All of this is Jared is working full-time and in school full-time. We have two kids, 2 and 7 months. And then I am mostly home with the kids, but I also work part-time doing some accounting and bookkeeping work. And then we're also involved in a few other organizations and things. So we have a very packed schedule. And so the main thing, one of the main things that I just really feel like is important when you talk about this subject is just setting your expectations. A lot of, I think, why we are and have been so far successful is because we communicate a lot. But with that, what's really helpful for me is to know in advance when there's busier times, or I think what ends up frustrating me the most is when I don't expect him to be gone for a while or have to study, and it just kind of gets thrown in, and I'm waiting for him to come home and then it doesn't happen. So some of those you can't always, they're not always avoidable, but a lot of times they are. And so one thing that's really worked well for us is to sit down together about once a week. It usually ends up being a Sunday just because of our schedule. And I get to pull out my little paper planner. I love planners. Do you like planners?
No, not at all. She bought me a planner for Christmas or my birthday a couple years ago, and I think I may have written one entry in it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna help you, and he just,
And that was a couple years ago. Yeah, I'm not a written planner.
I love it, but anyways, that's a different discussion. So we just talk over the week ahead, and we kind of, at least for me, just pencil in when is his club meetings, if he has an exam. Are there other things?
No, those are pretty much the big things. Or maybe they have a project to do or a paper to write.
Yeah, or just anything that would kind of throw off our ordinary schedule. This semester he's been home a lot more, but this was especially helpful in some previous semesters when he was gone a whole lot, and I would mostly be expecting him home around dinner time, and then we'd eat together, put the kids to bed, and then he'd go study some more. So if there was anything kind of outside of that, it was really helpful for me to know in advance, just even so I could gear up. Okay, I'm gonna be by myself for this length of time. Maybe other moms, maybe you understand, it's just nice to know, okay, my relief is coming in a minute.
And I think from my perspective, walking in, it seemed like your stress level differed when you knew I was going to be late versus when, I didn't think I was going to be late and I was, or I didn't communicate that I was. So I think there's definitely going to be times, or there have been times where, a project has taken longer than I expected, or say I worked a shift and I was up for 24 hours and maybe we had planned that I would, watch the kids more and be a little bit more involved in that area that next morning, but if I was up the entire night, I needed to sleep. So those kind of things are still unavoidable, but it seems like if we were able to minimize that as much as possible by setting good expectations and me sharing, okay, I know I have this paper right, I know I'm going to be gone, then when those times did arise, it seemed like you were able to handle that a little bit better than when it was a continual thing. And especially when it came back to lack of communication, lack of planning on my part, that seemed like your stress threshold was a lot lower.
So what is a day-to-day? What does that look like for you?
So this semester, like Erica was talking about, it's pretty light. It's still full-time classes, but the difficulty level of the classes is a little bit less than what I've dealt with in the past.
Which has been really nice.
Yeah, it's been great.
But we can kind of speak to some of the harder semesters too.
Yeah, but for this particular semester, I was not able to get my classes all in like a couple of days a week, so I'm still going to class 5 days a week, which is kind of a pain, but at the same time, I'm only in class for a couple of hours those days, so I'm able to build in study time. If I leave, I get to campus around like 8 or 9, and then if I try to come home around like 2 or 3, I still build in a couple hours of study time every day, and the goal is to knock out any type of study or anything academic at school, so that way when I come home, I'm truly home, and I can be involved in whatever is going on and give Erica a bit of a break, which is really nice. So that's kind of the plan academically, and then at work, I work a 24-hour shift and a 12-hour shift, and there's some days where we're really busy and we fly. Like last shift, like we didn't have hardly any downtime at all. I think I slept maybe like 2 hours on a 24-hour shift. But that's not really the norm, so there is quite a bit of downtime, and I found that it's not wise to plan on having time to accomplish school at work. Like there's sometimes early on in my college experience where I had a deadline of a paper I had to write or submit an assignment that day I was on shift. And that's just incredibly stressful. So I found not to bank on having that time to study, but yet kind of have something planned that I could study or I could work on that didn't have a deadline of that day, but that way when I did have downtime, I could utilize that time and use it more as an opportunity to get ahead when I'm not at work. So that's been helpful to do that.
Yeah, and then for me, kind of day to day, I am mostly working when the kids are napping, which has finally collided to be about the same time in the afternoon. It's taken a while to get to that.
Essie's 7 months old,
so
it's been a while.
Working actually with a newborn wasn't too hard. I'd actually just like wear her with a carrier and be on my computer. And then Owen goes to like a preschool twice a week. So I try to really focus on work those times and then nap times. But truthfully, a lot of times I'm working sometimes in the evenings if something is really busy. Once they go to bed, I'm working, or on the weekends, which I don't totally mind because a lot of times he's working. So it's nice to be able to make the schedule to fit when he's gone, so I'm not taking away time from all of us. But there have been a lot of busier periods where I end up working 7 days a week because that's just how the schedule is, and that's like the only way I can kind of get it all done. I really like to be kind of out and about with our kids. They just get like cabin fever really easily, especially Owen. And in these winter months, I've been trying to like figure out places we can go. So typically I try to kind of do our errands or whatever little activity in the morning, and then try to really come home and focus and work while they are sleeping, which if there's any other moms watching this, that's really hard because a lot of the times like the house is destroyed, there's all these other chores or just like me time things that sometimes I wish I want to be doing, but that is like the time that I know I have like quiet and I can focus. So thankfully, like some of my tasks are things that are kind of like brainless, like they're just like clicking a bunch of buttons. So I can do that if Essie wakes up or something like that. But so anyways, all that to say, I can kind of adjust it. But I feel like it's also important to note there's a lot of days where we're like still like doing chores or doing schoolwork or work until at least 9 o'clock at night, sometimes 9:30 or 10. And so that's just like a sacrifice that we know we have to make in this season. And then another thing we've done is just kind of like communicate to discuss for him, like, okay, well, what things are priorities, and then what in this season, like, do we just not care about? So honestly, like cleaning has been at the very bottom of the list. not like really gross people, but we've just like determined that that's kind of the thing. Like if something has to give, like that is the thing, and we're okay with that for now because these other things are more important. But I think other people probably have other, like they wouldn't want to give that up, so they give up something else. We're still like have a young baby, so it's not really sleep because we're still not sleeping great. But that is one of the things, is that we are like still going later in the evening.
And I think with that, like expectations and communication are really important with that. Like when Erica talks about cleaning not being a super high priority, I think that's something that you brought up to me, how you had felt maybe sort of less than, like you're wearing all these hats, like as a stay-at-home mom and a working mom, like that you feel this burden to, you know, to keep house perfect and make dinner and work and watch the kids and shop and do all these things, and like there was no way to accomplish everything, and that was something I think you were struggling with, like, oh, I'm not accomplishing this. But then when we actually talked about it, I'm like, I don't really care. Like if the house is like cluttered and like a little bit messy, like I don't mind. I don't mind cleaning. I don't like straightening up necessarily, and that's something that Erica would much rather straighten and not clean. So even like today, we had a little bit of a hectic schedule. We had a doctor's appointment, and I had some things to do, and we were actually going to go out with some friends tonight to celebrate someone's birthday, and we just kind of like tag teamed to where like Erica straightened, which is using her strength, and I cleaned because I can clean really quick. But if you ask me to straighten, like I'm gonna hate it. It's gonna take me a lot longer. So that's a couple different points, like using each other's strengths to really like have maximum bang for your buck of your time, and then also communicating like I feel like I'm not accomplishing what I need to, and then me saying I don't even have the expectation for you to do that. I think it's been helpful.
Yeah, that was really freeing, because a lot of times in my mind I'd be thinking like, man, he's coming home thinking like, what has she done all day, because his house is destroyed. And then when we talked about it, he said, I haven't even ever thought that. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, and so then just one other thing I was thinking is, another thing we've done is purposefully, intentionally try to plan like date nights and times with friends, because we found kind of in the busyness, like sometimes we can get to a Friday night when we're free and we're like, oh, let's hang out with somebody, and nobody else is free because they're not that spontaneous anymore. So we try to, especially for me, because I know that's something that is one of my strengths and I enjoy doing, kind of like getting people together. So sometimes like the month in advance we'll say, okay, when do you think we can go on a date? When do you think we can, like, when are some free times to hang out with friends? Or like do something special as a family. That's another thing that's kind of important to me. And so, you know, it probably might only happen once a month, just because of how our schedule is, and like knowing that he needs to study. But if you're intentional about it, then you can make it happen. And so that's kind of, sometimes we've had to give up, like, okay, he's gonna study on a Friday night so that we can do a family thing on a Saturday because he's working Sunday or something like that. So again, just kind of goes back to communicating, like, sometimes we've had to prioritize, like, would we rather do this thing or this thing, and those are all kind of go into like some of the sacrifices of the season. But to me, it doesn't feel like, oh, we just like never get to have fun. So that's what's important to me too, is like knowing that he's not always going to be there, but making the times that he is there really valuable and important. So we hope that some of those tips are helpful to some of y'all out there. But if you have any questions, please ask, and we will be happy to answer.